Ooh, this is too controversial. I don't think you want me to talk about him.
The whole issue is he's got... You just look at me like, yeah, here he goes.
That's like, he gets something in his eyes like, oh, a little adversity. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's like, that is such a part of the way that they think.
I feel like we haven't done one in a long time.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess that's kind of true.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's only been a week. Wow. Live.
Well, actually, truly, it's only been like a week. Like, it really has not been that long.
Yeah. So, we have a wedding coming up. Talk to me about weddings.
What?
Discuss.
Ooh, this is too controversial. I don't think you want me to talk about him.
Do you like going to weddings? How many weddings have you been to?
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
What, 1,000? By the way, you said that.
No, it's just like... There's some that are just so random that, like, when I was a kid, you just went because your parents knew the person, but you didn't know them. So, like, I'm sure there's a lot that are slipping through the cracks that I just don't remember.
Maybe like 10?
Yeah, probably. Maybe a little more than that.
I haven't been to that many.
Yeah. And I've been to, like, the smaller ones, the ones that are just, like, in the person's, like, a family member's home, or it's in, like, I don't know, just more of like a local place, or I've seen one where like they're renting out a ballroom in a church. And
have you been to any, like, as an adult?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, we just both were.
Oh, yeah.
So have you. Also your brothers.
I feel like it's like wedding season almost.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time I've had to consistently go to weddings. Otherwise, it was like all when I was a kid and I was just getting like drug along.
Yeah, well, and we're getting in, like, I mean, it's also family, like it's our family dynamics that have been kind of funny. Like, some people in my family are getting married older. So then it's like it's hitting at the same or like within a year difference of some of my like cousins. Oh, so it's like we're going to a lot of family weddings, but it's not like my family's that big. It's just people are kind of getting married at different times. It's kind of with your family too, I guess.
Yeah.
But then there will be a huge gap before anybody else, because then it's just going to be like the nieces and nephews. Like, it'll be the little ones that, you know, they're 6 or they're 7.
Yeah, I've only really been to 2 weddings, 3 weddings, I think. And I don't know, they're so interesting because they seem so much like a performance.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Rather than like, which I think it's also, it makes sense because especially the people that like our families, we're not like grew up doing performances or like,
sure,
they're just not that way. Like, none of us are that way where it's like, this is going to be this big grand deal and like put on a show type of attitude that I feel like you see weddings like shown on TV where it's like this big performance type thing. So it's like people are trying to have a good time, but maybe performing a little bit, even though they don't have good performance skills.
Yeah.
So then it's just like, oh, this is kind of odd. But then it's like, it's also so many people that I haven't been around that have like been drinking that much, or like I've never been around these people and they're dancing and like letting loose a little bit. So it's like even that is just a new and weird thing to be witnessing and being around, where it's like, I didn't know that this person danced, I guess. And they don't have great dance moves, but
I think the baseline of weddings, like, I believe in them. I'm not like anti-wedding.
I believe they're a real thing.
Like, I'm not one of those people.
You talk about it like it's ghosts. Like, yeah, I'm a believer.
Well, I think the way that I set it up made it kind of sound like, oh, you know, the conspiracy around weddings, or like I'm one of those people like I just don't believe in marriage because
Big
just
wedding.
through the government, it's a signed paper. It's like, no, I am all in on the like, it's just a party. Like, you're celebrating something like, I'm down. I'm totally in for, like, this is a silly goose thing that we do, and I'm in for, like, I get it. It's like, I don't think it's crazy or silly to have. I don't get as much of the sentimental aspect that people get from it, but that's just more of a personal thing. Like, I don't know. I'm not like that, like, from the jump.
Yeah.
I would have to, like, talk my way into it being sentimental. I'm sentimental in the ways that are so stupid. Like, a wedding to me, for, like, I guess if I was picturing me at my wedding, I'm just picturing this is an event that I'm in charge of. Like, I have to handle the logistics. I have to manage what we're doing, when things are coming in. Like, do we have enough food? Do we have enough drinks? What's, like, it's just, you're hosting a party. And it's, like, a large party that you're having to host. But the actual, like, ceremony part of it and the conjoining of two people, that is more like the day-to-day stuff I'll get sentimental about.
Sure.
It's like the day-to-day actions of being with someone versus, like, this is the one day.
Yeah.
It's more just like, this should be a party because, hey, we made it in a long time and we're going to try to make it longer.
Yeah. Yeah, weddings are just funny to me.
And I think we've talked about this before already on this podcast, but I think why I don't need so much of that, like, it's your day, like, it's the girl's day, is kind of what you're saying. Like, it's such a performance that I feel like I've gotten that so much in my life already through dance. That's like, I don't need another moment. I don't need that, like, you are walking down the aisle and everybody's looking at you and commenting on what you look. It's like, I've had that version of that moment so many times. That's like, now I'm like, this is weird.
We're very anti whatever's normal to a fault. So
and
it's
attention.
like,
I don't like the attention.
Yeah, I don't like the attention either. But it makes total sense that we would be this way about the wedding thing. It's like, it's supposed to be the woman's big day and there's all this, like, emotion and pressure and whatever. And so of course we're going to be like, no emotion, like, no pressure, no nothing. It's like, it's going to be just a party. Like, we're like, we're so anti whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, everybody does it this way? Nope, we're going to do it the other way. We're going to make it so emotionless and just like a regular Saturday.
Yeah.
That, we're kind of the weird one for that, I think. But
sure.
I think that there's points that you make that are, I agree with, like, it shouldn't just be about one big wedding day and then, like, before that or after that, it's just a host of, like, not good relationship and weirdness and not, like, respecting each other or doing things for each other or whatever. It's like, so they get one day and you get the rest of time to be an asshole. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. But I think we take it to an extreme where we're like, we're not going to do it the way that everybody else does it. And I don't know, just like, there should be a little bit of, which I'm sure it's maybe even forced upon you when you're in the situation, but there should be some emotion that's like, oh, this is cool. Like, good for us. We did this and are doing this. But
I think where
kind of weird that it's like,
that comes from more, it's kind of like the Valentine's Day, anniversaries, all that. It's like, I don't want to just both of us to just show up on when we, like, certain occasions.
like when we're told to.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's like, I would rather, it's like those can be excuses to go out to eat or to go get a drink, but it's not going to be like we're acknowledging that it's Valentine's Day. We're just using that as an excuse to go out to eat.
Yeah.
And that's like, I would do that for anything. Valentine's Day or we got exciting news. It's like, it doesn't have to, I will make anything worth doing that.
Yeah.
But it's like, it doesn't have to be because of, you're supposed to do that with your significant other. I think the only significant part of the wedding to me is like I've told you, like, it's the conjoining of it's not the conjoining of lives because that already happens.
It sounded like you said lies.
It's the
the conjoining of lies.
It's the conjoining of the families. Like, I will have a different last name, and with that last name also comes with a lineage of that last name that, like, I am now a part of that puzzle.
Yeah, that's so weird.
I'm now a part, like, especially then if, like, kids are involved, like, I am now a part of that family tree forever.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I think is more significant than just, like, two people choosing to be together forever. It's like, we're already doing that. That's not like an extra task that's put on it after that moment. But it's like, oh, I'm now like reassigning my path, and then like your family's path, my family's path, everything is kind of now conjoined. And then I think especially when you have kids, like, I will be a part of that and vice versa in some roundabout way forever.
Yeah.
And like that, I think, is a bigger deal and something to think about. Like, it's like we could get divorced, but if we have kids, like, we will be involved. Our families will be involved forever and ever.
Yeah. I don't know. In a weird way, I kind of feel the same way. It's like, obviously, I'm not the last name and all that kind of stuff, but like.
But you're bringing someone else into your family line.
Right, but I was more so meaning like being a part of your side as well.
Oh, sure.
So it's like, I don't know how, like, I definitely feel that way. So, I don't know. Maybe that's kind of where times have changed a little bit. It's not so much like the daughter goes to the other family and you never see her again. You know, it's like you're just kind of each person is going to each side, you know, holidays and anytime we're back and seeing family or whatever, it's not like you're only seeing my family kind of thing. Well, I feel like I'm a part of yours as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's like too looking into it kind of a thing. That is just like the only impact that I really see with weddings and marriages is it's like your relationship. It's like, well, it's a marriage. Like, well, weren't you practicing those behaviors and like relationship qualities before you got married? Like, I don't really know how that would switch. Like, well, she's my wife, I gotta do this now. It's like, there's no difference.
Yeah.
But it is like that conjoining of the families that always sticks out to me. Of like, you're selecting, I mean, this may be so just not romantic at all, but like you're selecting me to be a part of your now family's lineage forever. And then if we have kids, like my genetics and your genetics are now swapping in each other's families.
That's so, I don't see it that way at all.
Yeah, because it's a freaking weird thing to think.
That's so like medieval times.
That's what I was looking for.
Oh my God. That is hilarious.
But I think a lot, that's like where to me the privilege and the honor to marriage comes in. It's not so much like, oh, I get to be this person's wife. I don't think that has... I think it does have more a significance than you're someone's girlfriend or boyfriend. I definitely think there's a higher standard there. But yeah, it's like, oh, there's so many layers to us making this decision. It's not just like, oh, we're getting married and like, that's just what it's going to be. It's like, this affects a lot and people and...
Well, and I think sometimes people treat it that way. Where it is like... No, we'll just get married and that's it.
Yeah.
I think
way too old school about it.
Yeah. There's like,
this
a level
is changing
of
our ancestry
that I think should be there. But also, like what you said, you should have also kind of been trying to build a relationship and have a, I don't know, like you should have been committed and trying and whatever this whole time beforehand. It's not now just because you're married that now all of a sudden now it all begins. Now I'm going to be committed and whatever. It's like, that's just not how we work nowadays, I feel like.
No. I would hope not.
Yeah, I don't know. Some
Yeah.
people probably do.
Yeah. Hope people are not doing that. I hope as a group of people, as a society, we're not doing that. But
Do you want to talk about that horrible documentary that we watched?
I think there's like an extended part of it too, which I know we won't watch, but
Which
sure.
is just like, this is another thing for me to be pissed about. It's the extended thing. It's like, of course there's an extended thing. The whole issue is he's got... You just look at me like, yeah, here he goes. I just... The whole thing frustrates me. All of these fucking parents make it about them and don't care about what happened to their kids.
Well, let's talk about what the documentary is.
Oh.
First of all.
No, let's just keep it a mystery. Let's just allude to this thing and never mention it. It's the
Is it
Quiet on Set.
Quiet on Set. Why do I think it was behind the scenes? Quiet on
Same
Set. That's
thing.
right.
Yeah, the Nickelodeon documentary. And it's just like...
So basically, this documentary covers that Nickelodeon kind of in the later 90s, definitely later 90s, even 2000s, because
Amanda
we
Bynes
would have
show.
been... Oh, it probably was even early 2000s.
Amanda Bynes show, Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, like that sort of
iCarly.
era, that time frame of shows.
Yeah, so this definitely would have been in the 2000s or like mid 2000s.
Early, yeah.
That they're talking about just a lot of the child abuse on set and neglect for the labor laws for kids and the sexual abuse that was happening, and kind of like everybody coming to light of who it happened to and the stories from way back when. That's what it was about.
Yeah, and it has so many layers of annoyance to me about it, and I'll just go through some of them. One of them is the probably the biggest one is the parents. Like the parents just so many of those parents, they wanted to be child actors, and that's why their kids are now in it. So it's like, not only are you living through your kid, but now you're so blinded by what things are happening because you want it to be this and you want them to have that opportunity, that you're not seeing like clear telltale signs of like, this is not a good situation. And then these things are happening where certain kids are getting molested or bad things are happening to these kids. And now it's like all these parents come on and the parents whose kid didn't get molested are the ones making the biggest fuss about it. There's like 2 kids that had stuff happen to them. The rest of them, it was just like, yeah, and it was just like, he was angry a lot on set, and that was scary. It's like, and that's like 90% of the freaking documentary, to where there's 2 kids who got molested, and it's barely about them. And they just keep bringing up this guy who was mean to them. It's like, this is so what's wrong with everything right now. Is you have this entire documentary about this horrible stuff, but all you want to focus on is the oppressive nature of the producer. It's like, yet there's a freaking like camera guy or a whatever guy touching kids. It's like, what are we doing? You don't focus on this at all in the documentary, but you talk extensively about all these different stories of how this guy was mean to you. It's like, yeah, that sucks. He was mean to you and he shouldn't have been doing some of the things he was doing. But the whole documentary should have been about the horrible stuff that was happening to these kids. Instead, they emphasized the stuff that was like a little bit less than the bad. And then they just start bringing up all these different like, well, and you know, he wouldn't listen to the women in the writer's room, even though he hired you. And then it was like, oh, the women are getting pushed out, and now they're playing the whole white male thing, whole white male card. And it's just like, you guys are, you lost your 10 seconds of fame, and then the parents feel like shit because their kids wanted to be Nickelodeon stars or grow their career or whatever. And now the documentary's getting the parents to talk about it. And of course the parents are going to defend their kid, but they also have no idea of like how to be a realistic human in the world because of their own issues of wanting to be a child star and they weren't able to make it. So like, you have these parents now getting their 10 seconds of fame on this documentary, And now after the documentary's out, it did well enough. They're doing a whole nother thing with it and letting the parents talk even more. And it's just like, you guys are so, I don't like using this word, but narcissistic that you're making this whole freaking thing about you and your issues when there's actually horrible crap that happened.
Well, even the horrible stuff too, like that's something that baffled me the most was the guy that was actually molesting Drake from Drake and Josh. They didn't like do a follow-up of like, yep, and he's in jail and this is what happened. It's like they were just like, and something happened and he's back in business. It's like he's still working.
He's just out there
in the industry.
Yeah.
It's like he's still working within like Hollywood. I think this is, I could go so many ways and I don't know what way is correct, but I think from a positive perspective or where it's like, okay, well, can't we still recognize that this work environment needs to be catered to kids in a way, because you still need child actors, especially in those roles of like Disney Channel and Nickelodeon and things that were like, you can't avoid having kids. I think there could be something to do with like, can you have, just like you have in schools, like having people that are there to work with children and work with their like, and be able to defend when it's like, no, they've been going for 12 hours. Like they need to be having schooling. They need to be having breaks, whatever. I think the flip side of that, and where it's like, you can't, it's hard to hear you guys complain about this stuff because you're how it is right now. And this is where it more so just bothers me how they go about it. There's not an emphasis on, can we try to improve the system so that kids can thrive in this and they can actually get a career, and more so just, this could be a very fun experience for a kid. It's catered to and it's showcased as you're creating a career at 2 years old. You're also paying for your family's life and you're a kid. So like your family's income is coming through you. So think of that pressure. Think about that stress. Think about also the reliancy of, okay, my parents, they need me to do this. And then what weird family, like you even hear that with family dynamics with money as you get older. Of like, don't be giving people money. Don't be sharing money. Don't be whatever. Now you're growing up and your parents are surviving off of you. Also, what ego does that build? That it's also treated as a work environment. What 5-year-old should be working? Yes, it is a cutthroat. You need to be perfect. You need to have certain standards. They're going to yell at you because they're dealing with adult issues and deadlines. It's like, we need to get this show done and wrapped up so that it can be on air on this deadline. And we're having how many people and how many boards above us. And then that trickles down into a 5-year-old work set. It's like those things just don't work together, but the focus isn't on how do we improve the work environment, which is so crazy to even say that, the work environment for these elementary school kids. It's, well, they were mean to us and they should have been better. Okay, well, those two things don't equal the same. Like, that doesn't work because that outcome doesn't happen.
Well, and it's also this case of these parents are now getting the opportunity to talk about it. So they're just going to have every little complaint left and right. But most of them didn't speak up at that time. Well, they didn't want to be the parent that was causing the issue, and maybe they would do, not let the kid be a part of the show anymore, or this, that, whatever. It's like, okay, so where's your ethical, moral lines then? It's like, you can't be pissed about all the stuff, all the negative words and your kid working 12 hours a day. And I'm talking about the kids that didn't have molestation happen to them. I'm talking about the kids that it was a crappy work environment. They're working way past the child labor laws. They're maybe getting yelled at or like just that kind of stuff that shouldn't be happening. But like, the parents wouldn't speak up then. But now you're going to speak up and complain about it. It's like, where?
Well, supposedly one of the moms did, and the kid got kicked off the show.
Which then it's like, I don't know. To me, I'm going like, I'm doing the right thing. Like, it sucks that this is the consequence of this, but
Well,
if this is how this situation or this business is going to work, like, screw this then.
and isn't that crazy? Think of like the lack of development your kid is getting, and you also see it in like their adult interviews. Like all these kids growing up, like that kid who is now a full-grown man still like blames his mom
Oh, yeah.
for getting kicked off.
Yeah.
It's like, don't you see the? But then in the next clip, he's complaining about the work environment.
Yeah. And it's just like
your mom was protecting you from that,
well, yeah, there you go.
but you're mad at that. But then you also want to complain to make it easy breezy and more cushiony for you.
That's why I hate these documentaries.
You're also like, yeah, you got cut. This is the adult, this is the entertainment business.
Yeah.
They don't like you, you're cut. You show up and do something that they don't like, you're cut. Like that is that world. It doesn't change when you get older.
Well, and it's like, what do you expect or what do you want from this? Like, you don't want to be fired from it, and your mom can't talk, so then you go back to having a shitty schedule and getting yelled at and doing scenes that you don't want to do because you feel gross about it. It's like, I don't want to have worms crawling all over me. Like, that was just like child abuse. It's like, Jesus Christ. Like, the amount of reaching that was in that documentary too, of like, you are just reaching for anything to complain about and to grab onto to try to fit this story. And that's what I don't like about these documentaries is they're just so biased and swayed that's like, you're fitting. I mean, this one was longer because it was like, what, 4 episodes, an hour each or something like that. But it's just like, they have an agenda. They have an idea of how they want this documentary to be presented and what they want people to take a certain narrative away from the documentary. And that's how pretty much every documentary out there is it's trying to sway you into a direction. And that's what just sucks is like some of them are enticing and you want to watch them, but then you start to remember, or even like you look up more after it because it's such a crazy story, and then you're like, oh, a lot of this like wasn't, not that it wasn't true, but it's like there's a lot more nuance here. There's not just like this blanket situation that they're talking about. There's a lot more going on. Even they did that throughout the documentary too, where they would tell this whole story about people said this and people said that and blah 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 blah. And that was the other thing, the reporters acting like they were there. I mean, that was just a weird way to be talking about it. But they're talking about all these situations, and then they get the quote from the guy that apparently did all these things. He's like, no, I didn't do that. But they just do it like black screen, white text, like so-and-so denies the allegations. It's like, okay, so what's true then?
Which,
like,
I mean,
real?
that guy did come out and do his own interview and basically apologized.
Yeah, but some of the things were like saying that he wouldn't let the women have a say in the writer's room, and he ultimately like fired them because they were women. And then it like comes up on the screen. It's like he denies firing them because they were women. Like,
well,
so what's true then? Because he continued to have women as writers throughout his whole reign there. So it was like, how do we know it's true or not? It's like we listened to this person talk for 25 minutes about it, and then you get one text that says, no, he denies it. Well, now what? It's like they're clearly trying to sway you into thinking that he did do that.
Well, and unfortunately, like, yes, you can make more documentaries like this and keep pushing it out, and parents can make more of a thing, and kids can make more of a thing. You can, like, if you want your kid to be in the entertainment business, like getting them a lawyer, trying to get them an agent, which agents are harder to get, but like getting them someone that can represent them in a way. But it's just like adult entertainment. Things are not going to change because too many people want the jobs.
Oh yeah, there's people that are willing to.
There's
do
too many
what
people
you're
that are
not.
like, I'll deal with it. I don't care.
Yeah.
If it gives me the job, it's like I don't care what my 5-year-old has to deal with. Like,
well, what do you hear about movie sets all the time of the adult, like the Leonardo DiCaprio or whatever? They're all like, yeah, you have to be on set for 18 hours a day sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like that's the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it was, no, it wasn't the Disney shoot, but it was like another music video that I did. And there were 2 kids on set I don't know how they worked into the music video at all, but like their call time wasn't until like 9:45, but they had them there, and this is PM, had them there all day because they were like, just in case we get to it early and whatever. And like their whole thing was just they had to like run out and like grab ice cream and then run back off. And then there was like this group scene where they needed to be in it and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, there should be first, like, what? How is no one like, why does a 5-year-old's call time start at 9:45?
Oh, yeah.
That should be the first, what is going on? And like, it wasn't like this was just like a tiny little shoot. Like we were on the same set that we did the Disney commercial with the same like full lighting and rigs and everything. So there is a big team producing this. No one was like, that seems weird. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Also, why do they need to be here at 2 p.m. then and be here all day with like not getting food or whatever? And the end where like everybody was in the scene, I'm holding one of the girls and she's falling asleep because it's 11 p.m. at this time. And her mom is like yelling like, you got to keep her up. You got to keep her awake. I'm like, this is also not my job. I'm not here to do the kids. Like, did that turn into my job? Yeah. But it's like, I'm not going to yell at your 5-year-old to stay awake and like keep her just because this thing needs to happen and get shot. Like, this is not that big of a deal. Just because she stays awake is not going to, she's not going to be the star of the show. It's over. And she's like, you got to keep her awake. You got to keep her, because the person's going to get upset. And it's like, your child is falling asleep because it's 11 p.m. She's been up all day and you want me to yell at her to stay awake? And that when the kids were kind of like being children that are tired, the mom's response is like, if you do this, like, we'll go to Target later. I was like, oh my gosh. Just like so many layers of like, what does this do for you?
Oh, yeah.
I bet you see that more times than the other way of like,
in
this is
industry.
so fun. Like, I want to be able to provide this for my kid because look at the opportunities that they get and look how fun it is. Like, she's not having fun.
Yeah.
This is horrible for her. You're doing this for you.
Yeah, totally. Well, and that's what like, and then you get them in front of a camera and they get to talk and they're just doing what they've seen other actors do on camera. They put on this performance of like, I really just want my kid to be able to have any opportunity that they wanted to have, and they said they were interested and blah blah blah. It's like the freaking NFL athlete after every press conference. It's the same story over and over again. Yeah, just fought hard as a team and preparation and blah blah blah. It's like these parents do the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's the same rodeo. And it's just like, but then when you're able to see it for real, it's like, no, this is what really is going on. They're like, you need to stay awake, yelling at their kid to stay awake at 11 p.m. and then bribing them to with Target. It's like, that whole industry is just weird. It's so weird. And that's when like those types of documentaries come out about the industry. It's like your whole thing is weird. You're trying to like blame the industry, but you're also weird. Right.
There's too many parents and families and people in the industry that are still doing that behavior. That's what I said. Like, you're still too outnumbered.
Oh yeah.
To make a change.
Yeah, they're gonna go through what you're not willing to.
Yeah, well, and that's also the selling point. It's like that kid, that mom. I mean, you see that in the dance world. So, like, even in studios, where it's like, oh, this is the kid that will come to any practice. This is the mom that will never complain, and she'll pay for her kid to do absolutely anything and show up and do all the extra stuff. Like, we have any extra opportunity, like that mom is paying for it, and that one, like that kid is doing it. That kid gets the perks. And it's not necessarily always because they're better or because it's because they are selling their soul over. Like, it is just like they are so yes mans to whoever is like writing the checks or putting out the roles or giving the opportunities that kid always gets the perks and gets the opportunities simply just because that is something in that culture and in this world that we praise, of like killing yourself for your efforts. It's like that kid is like, she was sick and she still came in. She was tired and they still come in. Her mom is whatever and they still got her here. It's like, okay, but what are we teaching? What are we celebrating?
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a fine line there. Like, you want the kid that's work ethic and doing it. I think the line is, you don't want it to be desperation. Like, so many of these parents are so desperate for their kid to get the opportunities and to do this stuff that they're willing to do pretty much anything. And that's just, that's not healthy and that's not good. And because it turns into that, where it's like the kid is sick and maybe just needs to take a day or two off, and the parent's like, no, you have to go,
Mm-hmm.
forcing their kid to go. And then they don't get the opportunities, or they get fired or something, and now the parent's on a freaking documentary saying how mean they were to the kids. And it's like, I bet you've got some weird stuff going on yourself that you were doing this whole time. Because I don't know, you talk to most people, like, they probably would not put their kids in the entertainment industry. So it's like, you already have to have a different view, or a different, I don't know, you got to be somewhat weird to put your kid into that movie business or that show business, because all you've heard is horror stories about it. It's all you've ever heard. Yeah. And yet you're still willing to go do it. It's like something weird's going on.
It's just so not regulated. Like, I think you put your kids into sports or other activities, like, it's regulated through kids. Like, you put your kids in like any school sport, say like football. Yes, there is an adult version of this, but they're not treating 8-year-olds like they treat professional football players.
Oh yeah,
they're not like, we're gonna trade you, we're gonna get rid of you, because it's like
we're gonna trade you. Could you imagine you're like a third grader, you come into practice, like, sorry buddy, we actually traded you.
It's like, that's kind of the same example of this. Like, yes, that is the real world, or that is the adult situation of that job. Of, there's money involved, there's cuts, there's trading, there's a lot of pressure to maintain your job. That's like throwing an 8-year-old into that environment. That is the same thing with the entertainment industry. Is like, you're not making the environment any different for kids as you do adults.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So everything else is catered to the age that you're working with. Well, besides like, that,
even that, I mean, you're not, unless you're on maybe some like traveling baseball team or basketball team or something, which that even comes at a later age. But like, you're not a third grader going to football practice 5 days a week and then playing on Saturday and doing that for like 12 weeks in a row. Like, you're going to practice like maybe twice a week, and it's for like 1 hour. It's barely any time. You're not doing what the pros do, or even what the high schoolers do. Like, it's, like you said, it's tailored to kids and what they can handle. And yeah, that entertainment industry is just, it doesn't care. And it's, to me, this is one of those situations where, like, yeah, it sucks and that's no fun, but also like, that's just how it is, and that's how it's gonna be. There's nobody that's pushing enough and trying to change it enough, and it's just like, it's kind of that unfortunate thing that sucks. It's like, and if your kid wants to do that, you kind of have to go through all that, like being up till 11 p.m. and I don't know, like dealing with all that.
And that's not, and I think that whole life, like, you're committing to that as a family. Like, one of my students, when I was teaching there, she got and she was 4 at the time, and she got the part as the daughter in like a Ben Affleck movie, and they had to go to Canada for like 6 months. It's like, the mom had to go, like, and just like live there. It's like, she couldn't work, like, she just has to quit her job and like be with her on set.
And I'm sure that there's been parents that have managed it perfectly and done it extremely well, and it's been a great experience, and it's been healthy, and it's like, I don't know. It's been awesome, but it seems like majority of that life in that situation is just weird stuff going on. Just really weird stuff going on. But there's always exceptions. And there's probably enough to make a documentary about them of how they made it work. It's like, why is there none of that? It's just this complaining, no solutions shit all the time. It's like, why don't we do a documentary of all of the child stars that have done a good job and have made it, and talk to them, and what did they do? Like, what skills did they learn or tools did they learn early on, and what boundaries did they set up? Maybe what did their parents do for them to make it easier? Like, why are some of these
didn't Leonardo
people...
DiCaprio, he was in that. It's like he was around the same age.
Yeah, so it's like, what are the people that did
Not
have
like
success
maybe
at it and end up being okay? What did they do?
Yeah.
But we just want to sit here and complain. It's like, find solutions.
That's one thing the sports world does really well with. Like, they're very celebratory. Like, they do have, you know, some stuff in documentaries where they're complaining about someone or bringing negative light, but more of them are positive, of like celebrating someone's greatness, whether it's a coach or a player, or even that, like, you hear about these families and what they've done, and like the greats, you hear about their home life and like where they came from, and they celebrate the parents that are like, we're by their side their whole time, or we're great managers for them.
I love that. When Christian McCaffrey was on, the running back for the 49ers, was on a podcast, he was talking about like all the crazy stuff his dad would have him do. He's like going to school one day and he's wearing jeans on a game day. And he's like, "You're wearing jeans on a game day?" And he's like, "Yeah, what's wrong?" He's like, "Jeans are kind of heavy. It's like, might be tiring your legs out for the game." It's like, he was serious about it. Like, you can't wear jeans because it might make you more tired.
Which, isn't that funny though? Like,
it's like, you got to put some sweats on or shorts.
Depending on how he says that, it's like there had to be so many pieces to that puzzle as well, though, because he could complain about that. He could show that in a traumatic light.
Oh, yeah.
Like, my dad was so hard on me and he never let me do anything. And one day, like, I wore jeans to school and he yelled at me because I was going to be slow, and that like just made me feel belittled and whatever. It's like there has to be so many pieces of the puzzle, because you see that and you're like, wow, that dad really cared and was like so invested in his kid. It's like, it's also just how it's delivered to you. And
that's what's so weird to me, is like, I don't even compute that would be a bad thing or like traumatic or whatever. You know, it's like the other story, him talking about like they would go to and get like double-sided tape and put it on the inside of his jersey so that it would stick to the shoulder pads and stuff, so he couldn't, like, his jersey couldn't get grabbed. And they'd like stand in front of the fireplace too, so it would like melt more and be stronger and whatever. And then it's like, if you get arm tackled or jersey tackled, I don't remember, they had some sort of punishment or something.
He got like they got grounded.
They got grounded.
Yeah. So it was like after that game, or then the next couple of days, like they had to go to the room at a certain time with.
So it's
whatever.
Like you could say it's all traumatic and all this and all that, but it's like him talking on the podcast is like, but all this stuff worked. Like, look at where I'm at.
Yeah.
And look at what I've been able to accomplish.
And maybe that's the difference, is if you heard that and it was a negative story or not a success story, and he's saying it in a negative light, you could see that as a negative. Same thing with these actors and actresses. Like, if you were like, yeah, my mom told me that, like, if I don't get this next job, like, I'm going to be grounded. If I don't book this next thing or whatever, like, we don't get to do this. It's like, if that person is now one of a household name that we know and we like, or like, wow, like, they really like pushed him, or like, I like the pressure that they had or whatever, because it obviously worked. But if it's these people on the documentary that you only have seen one person ever since then, like, none of them made anything of themselves. And I don't mean that in like a negative, they didn't pan out. It's like, maybe they just all stopped doing it.
They didn't become household name actors.
Well, it didn't really seem like they were in much after that.
Right, but they could be successful in whatever other career that they're doing.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
It's
I
just
didn't
in
want
the
it to
acting
sound
world.
like
That's what I was
they
saying is
failed. It's like maybe they didn't even try after that. But because it was a non-success story, we see it as like a slam.
yeah, it's not a trauma story.
Yeah. It's like the setup is only categorized after you hear the results.
Yeah. Well, and there's just it's just a culture now of like just wanting your kids to be able to do whatever they want so that they're happy and don't probably so they don't make a freaking documentary about you later on. Like that's all that's happening now. It's just all these people that complain about their childhoods. It's like, when are you going to take self-responsibility? The Christian McCaffrey stuff is so funny to me because it's like his dad was in the NFL. So his dad would kind of tell him, like, if you want to make it to that level, like, this is some of the stuff that you have to do. Like, he was in bed by like 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock every night or something like that. Like, they were on a mission. Mm-hmm. And we were going to do everything we could. If it meant 1% better, we were going to do that. If it was taping our jersey, if it was like doing extra workouts or like, I don't know, little things here and there. Like if you get arm tackled, like we can't allow that to happen. So you're going to get grounded, or don't wear jeans to school. Don't wear these types of shoes. Like it was all dedicated towards that. And there's probably a ton of benefits that he got because he was so invested into that. It's like how many kids maybe have to do a bunch of chores around the house or have to do these other random stuff, and it's like he maybe didn't have to do any of that because he was committed and dedicated to this thing. So they were like, it's fine, don't worry about all this other stuff that maybe other kids have to do.
Did we? I'm sure we did because we were together 24/7. But did we both hear on a podcast recently someone talking about how they have handled parenting where like they're just trying to become as invested into the things that their kids are doing?
I don't know if I heard that.
What is it? Oh, that's gonna drive me nuts. Oh, I think it was. Yeah, it wasn't. It was the him and her one, but it was the shoot. It was, but I can't remember who it was. But they were talking about like their objective of parenting, what they wanted to focus on more than anything.
Focus.
It's like they are very much in the health space, and like their parents like really pushed health and nutrition, and they're like, okay, well, we also want to implement that, but like my core thing as a parent is like I just want to be very involved with them. Like I want to find ways that we can do things together, and they're like, and through that they eat super healthy, they're super active, like they want to do all of the adult versions that they are doing because it's just they're used to doing things as a family. Like they're doing the kids are doing cold plunges in the morning, they're going on runs with them. There was something else where like the supplements, like once they were old enough to like pour in the scoops and know what jars were what, the oldest son, who was like 4 at the time, would get all of like their drinks ready in the morning, and then like as a family they would stand there and drink it together. But then to say like as they got into, I think it was like basketball and something else, like he was the assistant coach and he would help and like be a part of the travel leagues once they got a little bit older. And his daughter was in gymnastics. Like, well, he's like, they don't allow dads in gymnastics for obvious reasons. So like we started doing like a parkour class together so that when we were back home, like I could do the cartwheels with her and like know how to move my body in that way that she could still feel like I was able to support her and help train her without just like sounding like a dad that has no idea what he's talking about. And because it was a kind of like the CEO of one of the bigger companies. Oh, it was the Keon guy.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
because they were like, how do you manage having the family and running that, and like kind of like how do you manage all of it? And he's like, I just focus on the 3 things. Like if I'm not with my family, I'm working. If I'm not needing to do any work, I'm like focusing on my health. If I'm not doing that and I can do that with my family, then I'm bringing my family along with that, like trying to find ways to always integrate everybody together. But that's one thing that he was really pushing, was that like just being so involved with what they are doing And I think that's also part of where there could be a positive spin on all of this stuff with the kids is like if you're doing it from a positive intent, I think the like weird finagling letting shit happen to your kids in the background wouldn't happen as much because the intent would just be like, I want my kids to have fun with this. Towards like that mom seeing her daughter not have fun falling asleep in my arms. It's like once you clock like, okay, it's no longer fun anymore. We got to like move on to something else that I can still be involved in or whatever.
Well, and that's another example. We were just heard of the Brendan Schaub talking about his kid with baseball. So it's like he wasn't able to see, like he was told early on, like your kid doesn't like to pitch and maybe we should do something, and Brendan just couldn't see it. And then he's telling it on the podcast of just like how it just all kind of clicked. The coaches were saying the same thing and whatever, and he's like, I started to notice it and see it, and it's like he's super involved and he's like knows what's going on and is being I don't know, just he's very involved with it. But even that, you have these ideas and this intention that of something that you want your kid to be doing or having, and it was like that was blinding him of, well, he's not having fun. Like,
and that's where, okay, so let's talk about that. Let's pivot into something else. The reason, at least the way that he was talking about it, the reason that his kid didn't like pitching was because he wasn't as solid in it. To where like Brendan still saw it as he's still good. So I think that's where he was blinded, was he's good. So I want to use him and I want to like basically showcase his talents or like use him for the team. Like he's going to help us win. Can't there be a lesson in there of, yeah, but you got to learn to be bad. Like learn how to fail, learn how to not be good at this thing. And you can be upset by it and whatever, but you can't let it continually mess up what you're doing for your team or how you're performing. Like have that anger or the sadness with failing fuel you getting better at this, because you don't get just quit when you don't do good at something.
Yeah, totally. I think that's what's maybe tricky about sports is, well, it's team sports, is like there's different positions and you have different jobs at those positions. And I think for whatever reason, you enjoy certain things and you don't like other things. And I think that was part of like this story was just, he doesn't enjoy being a pitcher. His attitude sucks. Even though he's decent at it and he's doing a good job, the enjoyment of it isn't there. That I agree, like you should learn how to fail or whatever, but I don't even know if it was so much about the failure thing as much as it's like this isn't the position that he wants to play.
Got it. I took it as, because Brendan said like he was realizing like he has never experienced being bad at something, because he went like down the list of all the sports that he was in before that. He was good right away. That he wasn't as good at pitching.
Well, and I think there was some of that, but he still was doing a good job at the pitching. So it wasn't even like they were losing games that much. It wasn't like a disaster.
But to the 7-year-old, is that still failing? Because he wasn't like exceeding in it like he has been.
Oh, potentially, yeah. But like, I mean, that happened to me. That happened to me too. Like, I didn't love playing quarterback, but they wanted me to.
Yeah.
It's like I would have rather played a different position. So then it's like you just aren't, your attitude isn't as great about it. And I remember one year for basketball too, or maybe 2 years, like I happened to be like the second or third tallest on the team. So then like I'm playing more of a like big man-ish role. I was like, I'm not a big, like I don't play like that. I'm not big. Like, why am I in this position? I'm not good at this position. Like, I don't know why I would be put there. So then it's just like your attitude about the position you're playing just doesn't, it sucks. Like you don't think you should be there. You don't like being there. You don't feel like you are good at that spot, even though you may be doing fine and you are doing okay. It's kind of that feeling or that idea of like my skills would be better applied somewhere else. And that's hard to get past. So I don't know. I mean, that's a
Because like as a
tough
parent watching
conversation.
you or you saying you don't like to play that position, what's the game plan then? Like what's the
I
What do
think
you
the
do
way
with
that I would
that?
approach it is by going like, you have a lot of time where you're going to play sports and play multiple positions, and you're going to like some and you're not going to like some. Try to see this as more of an experiment and also a learning tool of, you're going to learn every position on the field, and then you're going to have a better idea of what every person is supposed to be doing or not supposed to be doing. And that's going to help you take advantage of that when you're playing that position or in a different position, and you know tendencies that happen at this. Like even that quarterback example, it's like you start to learn there's such a responsibility of that job, and you have to have a certain skill set, and then you're able to recognize, because of being one for a very short time,
that helps you do the other jobs?
it helps me now when I'm on the opposite side of the ball and I'm defending against that, and I can kind of get in his head of like,
What are his objectives?
I probably know what he's thinking. I probably know what
Yeah.
he's trying to do. I probably know what's, where he's doing this, where he's doing that. That's why, like, you'll see in higher levels of football, in any sport, where it's like the offensive lineman probably played defensive line, so he knows something about the other position. So now he's going to use whatever he can to exploit that, because he also played that position. He know what worked against him, what didn't work against him, maybe different tricks and tools or whatever. So it's like, that's what I would approach it with, is like, this may not be your favorite, but try to learn as much as you can about this, because as the pitcher, you're trying to make it so the batter doesn't hit the ball. Well, guess what you're going to do? You're going to be a batter hitting the ball. So now you can start to learn what the pitcher is maybe thinking and what they're trying to do, and then you can start to maybe predict more what they're going to be doing when you're the batter now. And it's just trying to see it as a learning tool of learn every position. That way you know the game better, and you know what everybody's trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, so that you can take advantage of all those things.
I like the breaking that down in a way versus just telling the kid, well, like it's good to do things you don't like, or like you're always going to do things you don't like. It's like that doesn't seem as inspiring. I like that there's like you don't like this, learn to do things despite not liking it. Like your attitude should still not be shit. Like you still got to show up for your team. You still got to be there. You can't throw a fit because you just don't like to do this. I like the pushing past, maybe if there is a failure aspect involved, or if you're not really good at it at first, I like the pushing past that and getting better at it. But I do like your approach of like explaining to them why the situation that they're in is benefiting them.
Yeah.
Because I think kids and people, anybody, I think that's maybe easier to then work past the struggle of doing something difficult, doing something that you're not good at, having to like push through the, what's the sports word?
Sports word.
What do they always say? Adversity. Push through the adversity with it when you are getting a benefit of like, you will now be smarter. Your football IQ will now be better because you have all these different tools. Like you hear that in dance all the time. Like no kid likes to take the ballet class. Like, well, you have to in order to do all of these other things. You want to train in all these 6 other styles, you have to take this one. Yeah. But it's like, it's just presented as, well, most of the time it's just presented as like, you just have to, like, this is the foundation of everything. It's like, yes, but like the kid doesn't care about their foundation. They think they're good at this class. It's like, yeah, but this slows you down. This gives you structure. This gives your body like the awareness that when you're in these other classes, you'll be able to pick up things better. You won't have to work as hard. You'll blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I like that. That seems treating people as selfish as they are and kids as selfish as they are. I think that allows more like, oh, there's still something in this for me. And like immediately versus working through things that are difficult. It's like, that's going to help you years and years and years to come, like for the rest of your life, if you can maintain that skill. But what do I do with that now as a 7-year-old?
Yeah. I mean, it's like trying to tell your kid to be patient, and it's like, well, next year maybe you won't be a pitcher and then you can have fun again. It's like, that's just not gonna work. That I think finding a way to make it, like you said, make it work for them right now. Maybe make them see a different side of the thing. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't have to be that you just like the position or like to do this thing. It can be about, I'm going to learn more about this so that it helps me when I am doing the thing that I like to do. Because so much of sports is like, I don't know, there's so much benefit in knowing everything that's happening on the field. It's like, that was what when I was playing football, I really wanted to know. Sure, I may be just the wide receiver, I'm just a running back. They call the play, I know I'm supposed to do this. But I wanted to know what every single person on the field was doing, because now when things start to happen, I have an idea of where there's going to be openings, where there's going to be opportunities, where there isn't going to be them. And this same example where it's like, if you know what the pitcher is going to be trying to do because you know what you tried to do, you can now take advantage of that when you're on the opposite side and you're doing the thing that you do want to do. Or when you're, say you're playing a different position and somebody else is pitching, and you know how much pressure that is, and you know that sucks, and you know that like they maybe need words of encouragement more, or they need like pep talks or whatever, because you've been in that situation. You can now help that out more because you've also been there. It's like, this is just giving you more experience so that you can be more productive and helpful later on when you're not in this situation. It can't just boil down to like, I don't like this, so get me out of it. It's like, there's something to learn here and something to get out of this.
Yeah, and I know that's not how he is with his kids, so I'm probably just spinning it, or I heard it in a way that was wrong. Like, maybe he didn't feel like he needed to give the full story, but that's kind of what I thought was happening, where he was like, my kid isn't like pitching, I was missing the signs, but now we're gonna not have him pitch, and just like leave it at that.
The problem is that's only a hour-long podcast. That's the only time they're going to talk about it.
Sure, yeah.
So, like, you don't get all of the context. That's the thing that does suck about these, is it doesn't matter if it's 4 hours. Like, you have to, like, people also don't share everything. So it's like,
yeah,
you don't know the full context of everything and all the little decisions that have been made and are going to continue to be made, and what other conversations they're having. You know, like he said, even in that, like, he did have a conversation with him about his attitude.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's more to the whole story than just what was presented, as there always is.
Yeah. Where are we at?
Hour 2.
Ooh. Do you feel like you have anything more to say?
I don't know. I think I get so annoyed with how stupid people are. And I have to remember that they're maybe not stupid. That's just my idea of them.
Title of the episode. Maybe people aren't stupid. It's just what I think of them.
But it's just like, I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and I want to be a nice guy, but it's so hard to be nice.
Well, and this is
so
where
difficult.
it sounds silly, but this is where living in different places has opened my eyes even more to this fact I'm about to say, or this thing I'm about to say, of it's really hard to know when people are being stupid, or they're being just like, you just think like everything you're doing is just so wrong. How can you think that way? How can you act that way? How can you behave that way? Like, why do you live your life like that? It's so opposite of maybe even everything that I've seen. I think of, like, say Texas. You take people in Texas and you just throw them in Janesville, Wisconsin. Some of them are like, yeah, this is kind of like similar. And some people are like, why are you doing this? Why is your family dynamics like this? Why do you run businesses like this? Like, this is so not our culture. Like, talking about weddings. you take a couple in Texas, the rules are so different than what we grew up with a more traditional Catholic religion wedding style, which is what I think I more so grew up with, like seeing. It's like, oh, that type of family dynamic and wedding culture is so different than what you see even just here. And it's like, we're both kind of in the same area. It's like you take California, same thing. You throw them in where we grew up. They're like, what is this place? Like, why do you act like this? Why do you dress like this? Why do you talk like this? Why is this thing important? Why do you not think this is important? Like, it's because of where you grew up. I think where you grew up and what you've experienced up until that point influences you so greatly that even something as simple of what we're like, why would you do it that way? Or why would you even care to put your kids in the entertainment industry? Like, well, if you grew up in LA, you grew up around that, and maybe your friends were doing that in school, and maybe you know people, like a lot of people that are writers and producers and are in that business.
Yeah.
That's no different than your, like, anyone being in the medical field back home. It's like, that's a very traditional, not a job, not a career, but like a sector of work that is prominent from where we grew up. The entertainment industry is a huge sector of what a lot of people are doing for their jobs. That's like, well, you grew up and say 4 out of 5 of your friends' parents are in that industry. It doesn't seem as odd to do that.
Well, and that's what I'd be curious about is like, my guess would be basically everybody outside of LA is watching that documentary going like, yeah, this is what happens when you put your kids into the entertainment industry. But it's like, only in LA are they like, this is horrible. Look at what they did to us.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what everybody outside of LA knows, that like, this industry is horrible. And I just, like, how do you not, and maybe it's because of like what you're saying, the benefit of living in multiple different areas, and people that have lived in LA and that entertainment industry just haven't lived anywhere else and had experiences of like, hey, it's kind of weird that that area does this and it usually doesn't end up good. So I don't know, maybe it's just like, maybe there's just that, but
well, and you
it's
more
like,
so,
how do you not, that's where I am. I'm like, how do you not see it? And it's like, well, you grew up in it. Like you said, bunch of your family is in the industry doing this, and multiple people that are in the industry and doing certain things, and how they got their start was maybe with that. And it's like, yet the other 51 or whatever 49 states are like, why would you ever do that? Or it's like, if your daughter or your son was saying they wanted to get in the medical field, you're not going to be like, oh man, I don't know if I'd do that. Like, have you heard about that industry?
Right.
But it's like the entertainment industry, you're like, no, don't do that. That's a rough industry. Right. So it's like, I don't know. It's just weird to me.
And I think it's the same thing, like I said, with sports. They talk about the successes more. They don't like to get into the drama. And I think that's just the world of athletes, is like, they celebrate adversity because it just makes them better, that like they see those things as positives. Like, yeah, the coach hated me, or they made me do this and this. Like, they just see it as, yeah, they cared about me, they made me better. But you don't hear, yeah, we have the stars in that world and we celebrate them for their ability, but like their upbringing, like you don't hear, I mean, even my boss, Paige, it's like, she moved from Kansas, so like not in that world at all. Her parents were not in that world at all. Let her move by herself at 16 years old to LA, lived in Burbank in an apartment by herself, was in a TV show, like got herself to work every single day, was disciplined to like still have, like, she basically did homeschooling for herself, like did schooling, graduated, did all that stuff, basically like kept working in the industry, and she stayed there for like ever. It's like, and that was fine. And she was 16, living in LA on her own, doing a career, paying her bills.
But then
But like you wouldn't see her talk about it.
Right. But is it because she grew up in Kansas for the first 16 years of her life?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, the sports world is interesting because JJ Redick, he was a former NBA player. He's the guy that they have a new podcast with LeBron. And I saw him talking on something else, and he said that he had a moment when he was at Duke playing college basketball, and they got knocked out of the tournament or whatever, and he just was like gonna quit basketball before that and wasn't fully invested and like was kind of doing the party thing or whatever. And his coach like brought him in. Coach K was his coach at that time, brought him in and was like, we're not national champions because you didn't deserve it. And was like telling him that, not the team, was telling him that. And he was like, it just crushed me. Like it was a complete turning point. It's like what I needed to hear, but it crushed me. It's like, that's the sports world.
Yeah.
You hear that type of stuff and it is the adversity thing. And you take that and I mean, some guys will turn around and do what JJ Redick did, and some guys will crumble and like, you don't know their names. But I just don't feel like there's the complaint culture like there is in others when it comes to sports. It's like, yeah, you should hear that and step up to the plate now and be better and do better. Mm-hmm. And that's the attitude to have. And it's like, why doesn't everybody do that?
Because that's not, at least coming from some like a sliver of that world with dance. Like I think that is celebrated, the like being tough and overcoming the adversity, but it's not in the same way that when you hear like athletes talk, like that's what I love. Like that's the reason I love listening to like the Bussin' and the Boys. It's like they are just, everything about them is just like, we're gonna go after it and we're gonna get it because why would we not? Like we love it. Like we love adversity. And it's so stupid, but like I make fun of it because it's such a part of their vocabulary. That's like, he gets something in his eyes, like, oh, a little adversity, it's okay. Yeah, it's like that is such a part of the way that they think that we make it so much more dramatic, I think, on our end.
Well, there's
because we're emotional. We create art. It's like, so if I'm getting hurt, like it's like singers, like you turn that into a song. It's like you're using your hurt, but in a way you're still making it a thing. Versus like, I'm going to put it to the side and grow off of that. It's like, no, we're going to take that and make it our whole thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like you saying it's a little bit more dramatic, because I definitely see that, to where like if sports people are dramatic, people don't like them.
No.
They don't like that. They want it to be,
in this world, it's celebrated.
Yeah. And it's like they do want it to be like, yeah, just a little adversity and we moved on. It's like they want it to be, this wasn't a big deal. Like, sure, we were down 30-0, but it's just a little adversity and we moved on. They don't want this like big, like, and we were down. They don't want the sob story.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of...
To where you can take that, like, what's it called? Like, So You Think You Can Dance. It's like a dance competition show for adults, basically, or young teens. I think they can start when they're like 18. One of my old instructors auditioned for it, and like they tell you, if you have a sad story to tell in your interview, you will do better. So like, come with something. And they're like, even if you have to make it up, as long as you can basically backtrack it and somewhat like either have your whole family in on the lie, like bring something that will try to outdo. It's like the show is telling you this works here.
I hate that world
like
so
the
much.
Audience that is watching this wants, and same thing with like American Idol.
Oh yeah.
It's like there needs to be an emotional tragedy or a struggle for you to want this person to succeed. It's like in sports, you want to hear like they were good at 7 years old and they just like never stopped.
Yeah.
And then you want to see that person succeed.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think there's some cases where it's cool to see like somebody But that's the thing, is like you barely even hear about it, of somebody that has struggled or has had something or whatever. In the sports world, you barely hear about it. You hear about it a little bit, and then it's like, back to the game. Okay, here we go. Blah, blah, blah.
And most of the time, you hear it after they've already made it. It's like, I came from absolute nothing, and I came from like a dangerous neighborhood, and like gangs were always circling me, trying to get like whatever.
Yeah.
But that's after you already knew that they did it.
Well, it's like it's.
You're not like at the combine going like, okay, before he runs his 40, let's talk about his past. You can root for him.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where sports just, it's a different thing. It's like it's the only meritocracy left.
Yeah.
To where with dance, it's so subjective. It's like you are taking in the story they just told and the way that they're presenting it on stage, or, American Idol, it's the same sort of thing. Like, we came from not a lot, and here we are to do a huge group dance, and they're doing flips everywhere, and it's like, you are getting judged on that.
Yeah.
It's not just, did you score more points than the other team? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Like, there's just that bottom line. We don't care what your story was. You either are winning this game or losing this game. And that's the world that I love. And I don't want.
It's clean.
It's so not confusing.
Yeah.
And I don't like the rest of the world.
It's like the business behind it might be a little bit wishy-washy sometimes, but even that's very much like, this guy is better than you, so he gets paid more.
Yeah, exactly. And even that, there's like some debate about that or whatever, and it's like, well, each team pays their players differently.
Yeah.
They're going to be utilizing you for different things. And it's like, you have agents, you can negotiate. It's like, you can go talk to however many teams. If they're all saying we're going to pay you $15 million, you're worth $15 million.
Right.
I don't care if you think you're worth 20 because so-and-so had made 20 and whatever. It's like, all these other teams are only going to pay you 15. So that's
like
what
market.
you're worth. Huh?
It's like the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Just telling you what your value is.
Yeah.
Because these people decided it.
It doesn't matter about your sob story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sports. Just the best.
It's a great environment, I think, for kids to thrive.
And honestly, I think it's because it makes sense. And that's what I don't like about we already talked about it, but I don't like the give everybody a trophy thing. Don't like score the games. Everybody's equal and winning and there's no losers. I just don't like that, because even kids innately know like there's a winner and there's a loser.
Right.
And how do we determine that? And that's so clean and simple to them. It's so easy to connect to and to understand that, I don't know, you get into the other worlds and now it's all subjective, and it's like, well, I think this painting's really great. And the teacher's like, no, I don't think it is. It's like, well, now what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm super biased to sports. I always will be.
Yeah, I am too. I think the lessons that I got through dance are so apparent, I think, in the way that I run my adult life. So like, I don't think it's a fully negative experience at all, because I think I owe most of the success that I have now to that world of growing up in that. But you do kind of have to pick it apart a little bit, or at least not be not be blinded by what's actually going on. Like, be more like, what's actually real here? What's the benefit of this? What am I getting out of it? Like, yeah, I did competitions and like we always competed, but it was like about performance time. Like, it was about, you're getting stage time to show people and to make connections. The award, it's like, you got to really know what company you're performing for to know, like, are they judging with integrity? Are they not judging with integrity? Who are these judges? Do they even have why are they judges? Like, what gives them the ability or knowledge or the credentials to be able to view that, like, to where it's just like, well, through and through, you can just perform and get the benefits of performing. that won't change. Like, as long as you have a stage and you get to do this, let's just make that the goal. Let's make that the benefit. And like, what can we squeeze out of that opportunity?
Yeah.
But sports, it's just, you don't even have to think of that. It's just laid out for you.
Yeah. Well, and some of the things I've been doing with the kids is just more competition type things.
Yeah.
And they like it so much. And
Well,
I think
then
it's because of that certainty.
Yeah.
They know who won and who lost.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. It's so, like you said, clean. Just clean.
When I was learning about like their development at that age, that was something that was so surprising to me that I didn't really connect to before. That like that is their motivation at their age. It's like the same way for a younger one, their motivation is to be helpful and to like show that they're worthy of being in your presence. For that age group, their main motivation is competition, to where that even as you get into like the 12 and teens, they lose it, and then it comes back again a little bit because like the competition turns more into your status. But and because like your brain starts to recognize that, but their brain only recognizes competition and I need to be better than this person.
Which, now think about that, this whole agenda of no trophies, nobody knows who wins, there's no losers, like that's all the kids want right now. And
it's not even that like they maybe even know that they want it. It's like
how their brain is
emotionally
developing.
They might get upset when they lose, but like their brain is physically not forming in a way that it's supposed to because of the lack of it.
Yeah, exactly. So now when they do get a little bit older and they get a D on a paper and an F on a paper,
they have no motivation to be better because for what? And
they have no idea. They don't know how to cope with that and how to manage that because they've never lost before because nobody's ever kept score.
Oh, yeah. So like, when there is a score, they either don't know how to register it or they don't have any sort of feeling about it at all.
Yeah. They don't know how to deal with failure.
Well, like they might not even register that it's a failure. It's like how you maybe like, I don't like being bad at things, so I want to get better at them. They may not even have that because competition like doesn't exist.
Yeah,
they crazy. Just think like whatever happens, this is what happens. Like I have no control. Versus like if there's competition, there has to be an automatic translation of effort because you go, oh, I have to be better at this person, so I need to do different things or do these things better in order to win. And especially at that age, that's when you start to see the discrepancy of like genders, to where the competition starts to be like, oh, the boys are faster than me, or the girls are like a little bit more clever in how they figured out how to win and work together, and they worked together so then they won, or the boys were just simply faster and they still won. That age is so, it makes so much sense where like the competition is the motivation because so many of those weird things are starting to change, to where that's I think why they kind of said like once you get into the teens or the tweens, it stops because there's that automatic visual discrepancy of like, oh, boys and girls are different, or through puberty, like we're kind of at different hierarchies because of our physicality, to where the only way to know if this kid next to me, boy and girl, are any different is based off of who's better at things.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, like they don't register like what brings my value. Like, why am I better than any of these kids in here?
Yeah.
There starts to become like that competition with the peers versus when they're younger, they don't necessarily have competition with the peers. They just want the recognition and value noticed by adults or like by their caretakers to like, oh, if I'm valuable to them, they get me things, or they bring the joy, to where the joy at that little bit older age is through like being good.
Yeah.
It's like thinking in school, like you knew who the fastest kid was.
Yeah.
It's like that is, everybody recognizes like, oh, that kid's faster, that kid's better. He's top notch in our grade.
Yeah.
Like you beating everybody else out means your value is higher than everybody else.
And now you can't race at school.
Yeah.
Probably not, though.
Which is
seriously probably not.
It's so funny. Like we had
we literally had chalk, like painted lines for racing at the elementary school.
Oh yeah.
Three lanes.
Yeah.
That's hilarious to think about. They were trying to friggin' prime us into athletes.
Yeah.
Or they just knew they love to compete. So here's three lanes.
It's so smart. It's smart. I mean, even that's what happened in our last class on Monday. Like, there was a girl that she got a watch, and it was like a digital watch that could do a bunch of stuff. But the only thing that she was doing with it the whole class was timing people. She was like obsessed with who was doing it faster, and like, of course, calling people out and being mean about it. But
yeah,
still, like,
as kids will.
That's their way of like, your value's down here. She was faster than you.
Yeah.
Like, you're not as valuable a person because she's faster than you.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
That was a cool moment in that class because I had a similar thing in the second class where one of the kids got in trouble and she had to do squats and she was complaining about doing it alone, and without saying anything, how the rest of the class just started doing it with her. That is so cool. And then in my second class, same thing, like trying to promote team building, and like we had gotten through our warm-up so much quicker, which that was more just on me. Like, I'm not doing a 25-minute yoga warm-up intentionally, but she was like, you know why we got done earlier? And then I was like, why? And she's like, sorry, no, I'm not gonna say it. She's like, we're trying to work together, I'm not gonna be mean. But I was like, it's okay, you can tell me. Like, I want to know what you're saying. Like, free pass, because thank you for recognizing that you at least did it. Because I was thinking she's going to tell me, like, because you just let us be, like, I thought it was going to be a slam on me, honestly. That's why I wanted to hear it, to see if it was more like, okay, should I be adjusting the length of these because maybe it is crazy? And she's like, well, the people that aren't here are the ones that always distract us. I was like, the fact that she at first recognized, like, okay, that is just slamming them and that's not being a team, that would have not have happened.
That's progress
that is so much progress. Yeah. For that group.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was cool. Both of those were cool that they also happened in the same day.
Yeah. I'm out.
I'm out.
All right, cool. See you later.